back to the channel. You're riding with me in the F430. Well, it's about that time it needs a service. So I'll go ahead and throw it up on the lift and go through how I service it. This can give some of you information that are looking to get into these type of cars because all the services have similarities. And of course, those of you that own one of these that are interested in doing your own service, I really don't think it's that difficult and can possibly save you a ton of money. So let's get into it. Before I send up the 430, I am going to loosen the titanium cap to the oil tank. That way when I pull the drain plugs, I'll get a good solid flow. It seems to me that people are always looking for the jack point. So just real quick, the F430 is as easy as it comes. Right up here in the front, there's a nub that comes off the car to indicate where to go. A lift pad goes there. In the back right here, you can see that there is an opening in the lower panel. A lot of people like to use hockey pucks, especially the dealers. Unfortunately, I can't find mine, so I had to cut a piece of wood for each side to put the pad on to give me clearance. On some of my cars that have under trays, it's no fun because to access anything, you have to drop the whole under tray and it just takes a lot of time. And the plastic just wears over time, as I'm sure all of you know. Fastening, tightening, loosening. The plastic usually cracks and it's very time consuming. So one thing that's nice that Ferrari did on the 430 is they have access holes with plugs. Now, a word of caution, the problem is that what Ferrari wants you to do is actually change the oil screen when you do the regular oil change. I choose to change the screen every service. The problem is there was never anything in the screen and it was always perfect. So it was just a whole lot of time and energy because everything would have to come down. Now at that same time, I would change the transaxle fluid. The problem with that as well is that the oil samplings were always coming back perfect from the lab. So it really didn't seem necessary to do it every service. So if you want to do it, of course you should, but for me, what I ended up doing was I just used the plugs to drain the oil. Now I will take a visual up through the drain plug and the gearbox housing to see that the oil screen is clear. If that filter screen is clear, I'm not going to worry about pulling all this apart, and it saves a ton of time and just gets the job done faster. But you should do whatever you feel comfortable with. So we'll just go ahead and drop those, drain the oil, and start there. You can even see that they've got a access panel for oil filter. So everything is set to do that in case you want to go that route and save some time. You can get a good look at the plug locations here under the car. One here in the center, one right up here. Do not make the mistake of pulling that plug like I did because you do not need to. But that's what happens when you don't do this all the time. All right, let's go ahead and pull down this access panel for the oil filter. It looks like it takes a 3mm hex or Allen to undo the bolts. All right, let's start by pulling the plug on the engine. Looks like I'm using a 10mm hex. And it looks like I need to work out more. All right, let's do a take two on that with something a little bit bigger. There we go. Maybe we can just pretend that that first time didn't happen with the smaller wrench, if you don't mind. Drop a little there. Right through the lower tray. Just grab a bottle to grab an oil sample. And also you can see here, very nice touch, the magnet on the plug, which I see absolutely nothing, which is good times. Okay, now I will attempt to pull the plug below the gearbox with hopefully less complications than the engine plug. A little less at least, right? And there we go. I'm not sure how good this will come out, but what I usually do is I use a high-powered flashlight and then shoot up from the bottom once the oil's drained for a while. Then I can take a visual of what's going on with that screen. I'll try and give you a view so you can see, but you'll see that there's nothing up there and it's clean. So with nothing in the filter screen, I really just don't feel the need to change mine. But do what you want to do. If you wanted to do it, the process would be, of course, drop the under tray, which also requires you to pull down the rear valence. Then you can go ahead and pull down the cap, which will give you access to the screen. But let's take a look and see if we can look up there. Now, as you saw, I had difficulty getting the light up there without it blowing out and also being able to see the screen, but there was probably a little bit up there you could see, but there is nothing in the screen on this car, and the condition of the filter screen looks great. Therefore, I will just continue on. Okay, you know the deal. The plug below the gearbox now has a new sealing washer on it. We'll send it back up. And this plug uses the same torque spec of 75 Newton meters. There it is. Okay, I cleaned the engine drain plug, put a new copper washer on there. Now I'll send it back up. All right, we're all dialed there, and the torque spec is 75 Newton meters. We'll send it down. And there she is. Hopefully you can get a good view of the filter right there. Right here, I have a filter strap wrench. I will attempt to get in there and pull the filter off. So nice that Ferrari equipped this boot that has a hole there for the oil to drain, and I have a pan on the ground, making less mess. And voila, there we go. Okay, we have our new Ferrari oil filter here. And for those of you that are curious, there is a part number. You can see it's got 30 Newton meters. It's had its own torque spec and this nice gold writing, which probably increases the cost by 200% just to get those two items on it. As far as oil, doesn't matter to me what you use. I'll just throw some things out. And that most of the oil testing I do, the oils perform very similarly. When I say that, I mean usually the viscosity comes back at the same level. There's very low levels of wear, usually no water contamination, even though that of course is a separate system. One thing I have noticed, it's kind of odd, but even out of the red line I use, Pennzoil, Shell, Mobil 1, for some reason, Castrol Edge seems to hold its viscosity better. And I don't know if it's fuel dilution or what it is, but an example is, especially in the Mercy or these other cars, over time they will slowly lose a little bit of oil pressure, 1 to 2 pounds. And it becomes pretty evident in most oils I use. For some reason, the Castrol Edge just doesn't fall off. And when they go to the lab, they still test at 540, but I see the oil pressure. So for that reason, I'll go with the Castrol Edge. But use whatever you want. I've had good results with everything. I see a lot of different opinions on preloading the filter, and I don't want to debate any of that stuff, so I'll simply just tell you what I do. Yes, I do preload the filter. Even though this filter is sitting on its side, I will fill the oil filter. That way everything's preloaded and put it in. And of course, with that nice Ferrari drain, it'll just run off the edge. And the reason why is that I feel it's the lesser of two evils. Those of you that say you're sending unfiltered oil into the engine, absolutely correct. I'm not going to argue with that. But would I rather have unfiltered oil coming from a relatively clean container versus no oil at all in initial startup? You choose what works for you. Okay, I put the oil filter back up there. Torque wrench, 30 Newton meters with the filter strap. Go ahead and send it up. Okay, there we go. Okay, underneath I put the plugs back in and I put the cover over where the oil filter went. Now I'm gonna go ahead and fill the engine with 10 quarts of oil. Well, all right then, I don't see anything on the ground, so what I want to do now is I want to cycle it 3 times just to go ahead and charge the system, and then I need to run it, warm it up. You all know the deal with the dry sump. That way I can check the oil level. So let's go ahead and get to it and see what happens. Now that the 430 has its oil up to temperature, we can go ahead and check the oil level to see if everything looks good. And the oil level is looking good. When I retired from racing, somehow we misplaced the scales, and weight of vehicles always interests me, as all of you know. And luckily, I bought a new set of scales, and since I did not know what the F430 weighed, I figured this is a great opportunity to check it out. As you can see right now, the car is up on the new scales. If you want to believe what I could find online, all I was able to find was Ferrari's claimed 3,460 pounds curb weight for the F430. If we look at what we got, 3,477, that is not bad at all, especially considering that I've done the upgrades to the car. So if you take into account the fuel, depending on how much fuel was done on the Ferrari measurement, and there is a lot of times when Ferrari and other manufacturers will weigh the cars dry. This obviously is wet with a full tank of fuel. I usually use 6 pounds per gallon as a measurement for the gasoline. So you could see right there that even versus the claimed Ferrari curbside weight, the car is still not too bad. Also recall that I did change a lot of components to carbon fiber to save weight. I removed the windshield wiper reservoir also, but the wheels, as much as I love HRE, I did run larger wheels and larger invos, which increased the weight. But it would appear that all that was offset by my other strategies, which makes me quite happy. Unfortunately, I did not take good notes the last time I serviced the 430, and I cannot remember if I changed the coolant. So I decided the best thing to do is do a quick test and save myself possibly a lot of time. You can see right here in the test strip, if we look up here, looks like it's got about 40%. It definitely passes the reserve alkalinity and also passes on the acidity alkalinity. So all is good. That took me all but 3 minutes versus changing the coolant because I couldn't remember exactly what I did. I prefer the single clutch, and I know a lot of you prefer the dual clutch. To each his own. I know it's more technologically advanced. I just like the feel of the single clutch. Now, a lot of people have said that the dual clutch can be dialed in to feel just like it, and I just have not seen it in all the cars I've tried. Whenever the cars are on this side of the shop, I usually take advantage of tapping in to make sure everything's okay, especially if I'm doing some service work. So I went through and make sure there are no codes, everything looked good. And just for those of you that are concerned about single clutch wear, which is always a topic of discussion, my F430 has, let's take a look here and see if we can see, that looks like 7,148 miles. Now, I have the car hooked up to Leonardo, so we can actually check and see exactly where it's at. So if we take a look here at the screen, you can see there is the clutch wear parameter. I will go ahead and activate the computer to check, and we can see that it's 10.89% worn. So in those 7,000 miles and change, I've worn about 10%. Plus or minus. I guess if you want to round up, you could say 11%. And I drive fairly aggressive. Not like Drew aggressive, but aggressive enough that I would feel that I would accelerate clutch wear. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. And those of you that are concerned, single disc clutch technology is even better now. And I must say that on the 355, it actually wears worse. But you can see with 7,000 miles, that's actually pretty good. I just can't stress enough how much this tool means to me. It didn't cost me very much, and it saved me a ton of time and money. Not only working here in the shop, but as all of you know, when I get very busy, I send my stuff out. So a lot of times, the dealer will want to change the brake fluid every year. But if I actually go in and I test it and show them my results, they won't argue with that. So we just power this bad boy up. The F430 runs .4, switch to .4, then we'll just remove the cap to the reservoir. And let's see what we get here. As you could see, it is less than 1% in the green. Everything looking good there. So again, this has saved me a ton of time and money. Something you might want to consider if you're going to be doing your own service work. To get to the reservoir in the 430, it's simple. This cover just goes on there with these 3 bolts that you'll pull out, and they are knurled so you can take them out by hand. Well, I hope you enjoyed getting a look at how to service one of these, and in my opinion, it wasn't too bad. So for those of you that want to possibly save some money or get into doing it yourself, it might be a well appreciated option. I will say this, because of the recent economic times, it is very often, if not every day, that I get an email or contact from some of the dealers asking if I want to send in my cars for service. There are tremendous deals right now on not only car purchasing, which I'm sure all of you are watching, but also in servicing. Now, I don't know if that'll last long term, but it might be something to definitely look at. I would call and check around with the various dealers. In my particular case, there are definitely some good deals, but it is still a distance issue for me to deal with, and on top of that, no one takes care of your car like yourself. And on that happy note, my friends, I'll see you next time.